this one. So this is Sony Aibo Robo. It's a robot dog. It uses 64-bit RISC processor. Follow? And others also there. And this is the DVD player. In the DVD player also we are using the 32-bit microprocessor. The DSP. See, the best example of the digital signal processor is microprocessor. And in the MP3 player, this is the MP3 player. Okay, it also uses 32-bit microprocessor. And GPS receiver, global positioning system. Nowadays we are using this GPS receiver, GPS technology for exactly locating the vehicle position. I think recently the terrorists they also used this GPS technology. And this is Mars Sojourner rover. Okay, it is an 8-bit. It is using 8-bit Intel microprocessor, 8084 microprocessor. Okay, that you are studying now. This is the robot sent onto the Mars. Okay. A lot many examples are there. You can refer the book and you can understand. I think this introduction is more than sufficient. If you have any doubts, you can ask. So otherwise, tomorrow we start with the discrete time signal directly. Discrete time signals and signals. Do you know sampling theorem? Okay, I'll briefly introduce the sampling theorem. Then tomorrow we start with the discrete time signal. So let we have a continuous time signal x of t. That is varying light. It is an arbitrary shape. Okay, I selected an arbitrary shape, and it is an example of a continuous time signal. Okay. Now, if you multiply this signal with another signal, is a mathematically idealized function. Represent this as p of t. That this is ts, 2ts, 3ts. This is 4ts, 5ts. The spacing between these values is same. That equivalent to ts. This will be minus ts. Let's please don't run out. So at t equivalent to 0, we have an impulse. Okay. Whose strength is equivalent to 1. Here we have another impulse, and this is another impulse. This is another one. So what we call this? There is a specific name for it. Do you know? Some impulse strength, unit impulse strength, or it is also called as Dirac-Cohn, Dirac delta functions. Have you studied this? Yes or no? Now if you multiply these two, what you will get? Multiply the two functions. Let S of t is equivalent to the product of these two. See, x of t is the analog signal and p of t is a mathematically idealized function called as the Dirac-Cohn. Why? Because the shape of this p of t is like cone. That's why it is called the Dirac-Cohn. It is also the impulse strength, okay? Unit impulse strength. So if you have one impulse, this one, this is the delta t, is it? For impulse function. Here it is, it has many impulse functions. Okay, delta t, delta of t minus ts, delta of t minus 2ts, delta of 3 minus 3ts, and so on. Okay. What will the, see, if you multiply these two, what will you get? So for that, this can be written as x of t into the p of t can be written as sigma n equivalent to minus infinity to plus infinity delta of t minus nt. Is it right? This p of t can be represented mathematically by this equation. How you got it? Not convolution. Why convolution? See, when n equivalent to 0, what you will get? Delta of, this is delta of, okay? When n equivalent to 1, delta of t minus tl. When n equivalent to 2, delta of t minus 2t. Is it? Therefore, this signal p of t can be represented mathematically by this equation, minus infinity to plus infinity, delta of t minus nt. Is it right? Now, can I write this as sigma minus infinity to plus infinity x of t into delta of t minus nt. Just I brought that x of t inside because the summation is running over minus infinity to plus infinity and the index is n. So x of t is function of t. Therefore, that can be taken inside. Understood this? So if here if you are confusing this with n, we already considered one small n in the previous class. Okay. So better way is change this to some other variable. Let it be some k instead of n. We call it as k. Is it right? You know this relation x of t into delta of t minus t naught is equivalent to how much? What is x of t into delta of t minus t naught? Have you studied the properties of impulse function? Properties of impulse function. Say yes or no? Don't know. What is this? This is equivalent to x of t naught into delta of T minus T naught. This is called the shifting property. Not shifting, shifting. Shifting property of impulse function. What is the area under impulse function? Area under impulse function. 1. So this is called the shifting property of the impulse function. Not study, shifting property. Okay, we remember it. Okay. The shifting property of impulse, according to the shifting property of impulse function, x of t multiplied with delta of t minus t naught can be written as x of t naught into delta of t minus t naught. Why? Because, see, what about delta of t minus, what do you mean by delta of t minus t naught? Delta of t minus t naught exists only at t equivalent to t naught. Okay. For remaining values it is 0. So if you multiply x of t with delta of t minus t naught, the product is non-zero at t equivalent to t naught. For remaining values it will be 0. Therefore, x of t into delta of t minus t naught is equivalent to x of t naught into x of t minus t naught. The product exists only at t equivalent to t. Why? Because delta of t minus t naught is equivalent to 0 for t not equivalent to t naught. Is it? Now, if you use this property, this can be written as minus infinity to plus infinity. This will be, see, delta of t minus t naught. Instead of t naught we have kts into delta of t minus t. Is it right? So this is the product of x of t and t of t. Now, when k is 0, what is s of t? When k equivalent to 0, s of t is x of 0 into delta of t. Is it? So what do you mean by x of 0? See, this value is the x of 0. Okay. The value of x of t at t equivalent to 0 is x of 0. X of 0 is multiplied with this. Then you will get an impulse at t equivalent to 0. What is the strength of this impulse? Is equivalent to x of 0. Okay. Now, when k equivalent to 1, this will be x of ts into delta of t minus ts. Delta of t minus ts is this. This is multiplied with this amplitude. So therefore, you will get another impulse at t equivalent to ts. Now, what is the strength of this? X of ts. So therefore, if you consider the remaining, if you substitute the remaining values of k, how it will look like? We have one more here, another one here. This is one here. You get one more. Is it right? See, what is that dotted line indicates? The dotted line indicates the analog signal. Okay, and these are the samples. Okay, so what this indicates? We have taken the sample at an equal interval of time. Okay. What is the spacing between samples here? T. This is minus Ts. This is 0 Ts, 2 Ts. This is 3 Ts, 4 Ts, and this will be 5 Ts, 6Ts. So it will continue like this. Now, what is the difference between this signal and this signal? See, this signal is a continuous function of time. The independent variable t is taking all possible values. But here, the independent variable t is taking only a discrete set of values 0, ts, 2ts, 3ts, and so on. So that's why this signal is called as discrete time signal. This is the continuous time signal. This is the discrete time signal. So we obtain a discrete time signal by multiplying the continuous time signal with a Dirac point, okay, or impulse time. So this process of converting a continuous time signal to discrete time signal is called as sampling. Okay. So here this Ts, the spacing between the samples, is called as the sampling period. See, is it periodic? Is this periodic? Is this Dirac form periodic? It is periodic because it is repeating at an equal interval of time. The same impulse is repeating. So it is periodic. Okay. P of t is equivalent to P of t plus Ts. Okay. What about this? Here we multiplied this C of t with a periodic impulse time. Okay. So that's why the spacing between the samples that we obtain is Ts, and this Ts is called the sampling period or sampling interval. What about the reciprocal of this? The reciprocal of the sampling period is the sampling rate. Okay. Fs is the sampling rate, which is the reciprocal of sampling period. Now we have discretized a signal. Okay, this process is called discretization. Okay. We have a continuous time signal, we discretize by the process of sampling. Now, can we recover this analog signal from the discrete time signal, or can we recover the continuous time signal from the analog signal? Is it possible? Okay. How can you do it? Reverse sampling. Okay. What do you mean by reverse sampling? How can we reverse this process? Function. Okay, somewhat right. Okay, by using sinc function, what you do? Okay, what you said is right. And what you have to do? Using sinc function. Wave function. So in the next class, before that, by transmitting this S of t. What is S of t here? S of t is the sample signal. Okay. If you transmit the sample signal through a low pass filter, okay, we can obtain the continuous time signal back. In the next class, we see the reconstruction of the original signal back from the samples. Okay. So according to the sampling theorem, a continuous time signal that is band limited can be sampled at the rate of fs, and from the knowledge of samples we can reconstruct the original signal path, original analog signal path. Okay. If the Nyquist criteria is satisfied, that is, the sampling rate must be greater than or equivalent to 2fs. What is Fm here? Fm is the highest frequency component that present in the continuous time signal. Okay. In the next class, we try to prove the sampling theorem. Okay. Just I introduced the sampling process. Okay. In the next class, we prove the sampling theorem and see how we can reconstruct the original continuous time signal back from the knowledge of sampling. Once again, I repeat, any continuous time band limited signal can be sampled at the rate of fs, okay. And from the knowledge of these samples we can reconstruct the original signal back by transmitting that sampled signal through a low pass filter, provided that the sampling rate fs must be greater than or equivalent to 2f, where fm is the highest frequency component that present in the continuous time. Understood this? So we will continue in the next class.